Good evening. All right. Sunday evening, about that time when everybody starts getting real depressed because they got to go to work tomorrow. Monday morning. What was I going to look up? All right. Alabama goes to Kentucky and hammers them 49-21. Alabama is now 9-1. Kentucky is 6-4. Clemson plays a lot better at home. They double up Georgia Tech 42-21. Clemson is 6-4. Georgia Tech is 5-5. Army wins a close one against Holy Cross 17-14 at home. Army's 4-6. Holy Cross is 6-4. Illinois hangs on to beat Indiana in overtime 48-45. The Fighting Illini are now 5-5, and Indiana is 3-7. Sorsby had 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. Paddock for the Fighting Illini had 507 yards and 4 touchdowns. Wow. Isaiah Williams had 9 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jesus Christ. I think they play Iowa next week and Iowa City. Iowa's got to shut that down. Isaiah Williams. Can't let him do what Purdue did to him for like 6 straight years and let him have like 300 receiving yards. Isaiah Williams, that's who they got to shut down next week. Put Castro on him, put DeJean on him, shadow him wherever he goes. Phil Parker obviously knows what he's doing, but the fans, everybody would love to see DeJean versus Isaiah Williams. He'll get a couple catches here and there, but I think DeJean shuts him down. He might get a pick or two. That would be a good matchup. Maryland still at the 11 o'clock time frame. Maryland goes to Nebraska and beats them 13-10 on a last-second field goal. In the stat line, this is the Cornhuskers stat line. Pass yards, the most was Jeff Sims with 62 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Rushes was E. Johnson, 17 carries for 84 yards, and receiving was Kemp, two catches for 30 yards. Damn. Michigan goes to Penn State in Happy Valley and walks out of there 24-15. Michigan remains undefeated, 10-0. Penn State drops to 8-1. That was their first loss. I thought they had lost twice. Michigan did not throw a pass in the second half. It was 14-9 Michigan at halftime. South Florida wins at home against Temple, 27-23. South Florida is 5-5. Temple is 3-6. Tulane beats Tulsa, 24-22. Tulane is 9-1. Tulsa's 3-7. Texas Tech goes to Kansas and beats them 16-13. It was 13-0 going into the fourth quarter. Texas Tech was up. South Carolina beats down Vanderbilt at home 47-6. Va-Tech goes to Boston College and beats them 48-22. Va-Tech is now 5-5. Boston College is 6-4. Liberty remains undefeated at home. They beat Old Dominion 38-10. Old Dominion is now 4-6. App State goes to Georgia State and beats them 42-14. It's 21-0 at halftime. App State and Georgia State are now 6-4. Arizona walks it off with a field goal At Colorado, 34-31. Arizona is now 7-3, and Colorado is 4-6. And those 4 wins are shitty wins. Colorado ain't it. Anybody who watched college football could have told you that and was telling you that, but people didn't want to listen. Yada, yada. But we are who they thought they were, right? They lose at home 34-31 to Arizona. Memphis beats Charlotte on the road 44-38. Memphis is now 8-2, and Charlotte is now 3-7. NC State, they're sneaky good. I said they're a team I would not want to play right now, no matter who I am. They go to Wake Forest and win 26-6. Now Wake Forest is not good; they're 4-6. NC State is 7-3, but they've got some players. Armstrong, who transferred from Virginia, I believe, he's not that good. They've got another quarterback. I don't know why they don't play him, but yeah, NC State's defense is really good. Troy, Iowa plays them next year. Iowa plays Troy next year. Troy goes to Louisiana Monroe and wins 45-14. James Madison remains undefeated by whooping the 1-9 UConn Huskies 44-6 at home. K-State wins at home against Baylor 59-25. It was 35-13 at halftime. K-State's 7-3. Baylor is 3-7. Utah State wins at home against Nevada 41-24. Utah State moves to 500 at 5-5. Nevada's 2-8. Sam Houston beats Louisiana Tech on the road 42-27. Sam Houston is 2-8. La Tech is 3-8. Middle Tennessee State wins at home against Florida International 40-6. It was 31-6 at halftime. Middle Tennessee is 3-7. FIU is 4-6. Florida State at the 2:30 time slot wins at home. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but they still won. I said that they had to. Emory Williams scared me. Whenever you bring in a quarterback who has some talent and has athletes around him, you never know. They're not thinking that much. They're just playing, and usually that's for the better. So I was scared of that because Miami has some players out there, and I thought Emory Jones was just going to throw short stuff, and he gave it a good game. They only won 27-20. Miami is now 6-4. Florida State is 10-0. It was 10-10 at halftime. I wrote down a couple of things. DeLoach is a monster. That dude is having an outstanding year. He's progressed a little bit every year. He didn't get a lot of playing time back in the day, but he's making the most out of his chances and his plays. He's all over the place. That sack he had where he just came blitzing through the guard and the tackle and just smoked the quarterback. I mean, that's a thing of beauty. That's what he did to Klubnik to force the fumble and then recovered the juggling of it and took it to the house. I mean, I'm still thinking about buying that photo where he's picked up the ball and he's got, I think Fisk behind him, maybe Verse, it might be Peyton. I'm not sure. I think Bethune is there, but they're just racing down the field and they all signed it. It's $250, but I think it's worth it. I should not be buying it, but who gives a fuck, right? Florida State beats Miami. That game always makes me nervous, but they win 27-20. I said they had to stop George and Fletcher in the backfield. George as the wide receiver and Fletcher. George had 5 catches, 153 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a hell of a day. So he was averaging 30+ per catch. Chaney actually had the most yards, 85 yards, but they're going to be tough next year. Purdue beats Minnesota 49-30 at home. Purdue is now 3-7. Minnesota is 5-5. It was 28-20 at halftime. New Mexico State wins on the road versus Western Kentucky, 38-29. New Mexico State is 8-3. Western Kentucky is 5-5. Northwestern goes up to Madison and beats the Badgers 24-10. Both teams are now 5-5. Wow. It was 24-3 at halftime. Northwestern was up. Man, Camp Randall had to be silent. UCF moves to 5-5 on the year, and they demolish the 15th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys 45-3. UCF is now 5-5. Oklahoma State is 7-3. Syracuse wins at home versus Pitt 28-13. Syracuse is 5-5. Pitt is 2-8. Missouri makes a statement against Tennessee, winning 36-7 at home. Missouri's 8-2. Tennessee is 7-2. Missouri is sneaky good too. Coastal Carolina wins at home versus Texas State 31-23. Coastal Carolina moves to 7-3, and Texas State moves to 6-4. Navy wins at home 31-6 against UAB. Navy is 4-5. UAB is 3-7. Washington remains undefeated against after beating Utah 35-28. Washington's 10-0. Utah is 7-3. Iowa wins at home 22-0 against Rutgers. It was 3-0 at halftime. Iowa moves to 8-2. Rutgers moves to 6-4. Auburn goes on the road and beats Arkansas 48-10. Arkansas is 5-4. Auburn is 5-4. Arkansas is 3-7. East Carolina goes on the road and beats FAU 22-7. South Carolina is 2-8. Florida Atlantic is 4-6. Washington State is losing steam fast. They lose on the road to Cal 42-39. It's 28-21 at halftime. Wow. Washington State is now 4-6. Cal is 4-6. South Alabama beats Arkansas State at home 21-14. Both teams are now 5-5. Oregon State put 62 up on Stanford, winning 62-17. Oregon State is 8-2. Stanford is 3-6. Oregon State versus Iowa would be an interesting game. I have more to say about the Florida State game, but I'll get into it in a minute. Cincinnati goes on the road and beats Houston 24-14. Cincinnati's 3-7. Houston is 4-6. Marshall wins a close one at home, 38-33 against Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern is 6-4. Marshall's 5-5. The number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs beat up on Ole Miss 52-17. Georgia's 10-0. Ole Miss is now 8-2. Colorado State beats San Diego State 22-19. Colorado State is 4-6. San Diego State is 3-7. Oklahoma puts up 59 against West Virginia, who scores 20 points. Oklahoma is now 8-2. West Virginia is 6-4. That game was 31-14 at halftime. LSU beats down Florida 52-35. LSU is 7-3. Florida is 5-5. Jaden Daniels had 372 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, and rushing he had 12 carries for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jesus Christ. Yeah, the Noles got to stop Etienne and Pearsall, and they got a chance. But it's going to be tough. Those guys are good. I'd put Jarrion Jones on Pearsall, and then I would just have Bethune go wherever Etienne goes. Maybe even DeLoach. I don't know, man. Maybe Akeem Dent on ETN. Who knows? But LSU beats Florida. Ohio State beats up on Michigan State 38-3. Ohio State played that one at home. They're now 10-0. Michigan State is 3-7. Texas A&M beats Mississippi State 51-10. And then on Sunday today, they fired Jimbo Fisher, owing him $75 or $76 million over the next 8 years to 2031. They are going to pay him $75 million. Also, Jimbo's agent worked it into the contract that if he gets hired another D1 head coaching job, he still gets owed the buyout money from Texas A&M, and he gets a salary on top of that from the school that hires him. Pure insanity. But they win 51-10. Texas A&M is 6-4. Mississippi State is 4-6. Texas San Antonio wins at home versus Rice 34-14. Texas San Antonio is now 7-3. Rice is 4-6. Texas wins a close one on the road, 29-26 versus TCU. TCU scored 20 points in the fourth quarter to make that one close. North Carolina wins a close one in overtime at home versus rival Duke, 47-45. Wow, Duke scored 22 points in the fourth quarter to send it to OT. Arizona State upsets UCLA 17-7 on the road. Arizona State is 3-7. UCLA is 6-4. They're always bad. They're never going to get better. Boise State wins at home 42-14 versus New Mexico. Boise State is 5-5. New Mexico is 3-7. Iowa State goes on the road and pounds BYU 45-13. Iowa State is 6-4. BYU is 5-5. San Jose State wins at home 42-18 against Fresno State. San Jose State moves to 5-5. Fresno State moves to 8-2. In my ESPN strength or whatever weekly, where you pick 10 games, you pick the winners, and then you put them confidence, I guess it's called. You put them in order 10-1, assign them points based on your confidence. I had Fresno State as my number 10 versus San Jose State, and San Jose State beat them 42-18. Ouch. Anyway, Oregon beats USC at home 36-27. Oregon moves to 9-1. USC is now 7-4. Bo Nix threw for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. Hawaii wins at home versus Air Force 27-13. Hawaii's 4-7. Air Force is now 8-2. SMU wins at home versus North Texas 45-21. SMU is 8-2. North Texas is 3-7. UNLV wins at home 34-14 versus Wyoming. UNLV is 8-2. Wyoming is 6-3. Southern Miss goes on the road and beats Louisiana 34-31. Southern Miss is 3-7. Louisiana is 5-5. Louisville wins at home versus Virginia 31-24. Louisville is now 9-1 and Virginia is 2-8. Miami of Ohio beats Akron 19-0. Miami of Ohio is 8-2 and Akron is 2-8. Bowling Green goes to Kent State and beats them 49-19. Bowling Green is 6-4 and Kent State is 1-9. Rough season. Toledo beats Eastern Michigan at home. Toledo is 9-1. Eastern Michigan is 4-6. Score in that one was 49-23. It was 35-3 at halftime. Ball State beats Rocky Lombardi from down the street in Northern Illinois 20-17. Northern Illinois falls to 4-6 and Ball State is 3-7. Rocky Lombardi had 141 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Western Michigan beats Central Michigan 38-28. Western Michigan played that one at home at Waldo Stadium in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Western Michigan beats them 38-28. Western Michigan is 4-6. Central Michigan is 5-5. And to wrap up the week, Ohio goes on the road and beats Buffalo 20-10. Ohio is 7-3. Buffalo is 3-7. What a week. It goes by so fast when you start watching the games, or you have things to do and you miss these games. And yeah. But back to Florida State. I already talked about DeLoach. I mean, he's a game changer on defense. This next game, I hope they play like a quarter and a half and then they rest them, get them ready for Florida. So they're going to be 11-0 going to Gainesville. That game's going to be tough. They got to stop Etienne and Pearsall. Pearsall and Etienne, that's who they got to lock in on. I want to see Jarrion. Actually, Renardo and Jarrion switching off on Pearsall, and DeLoach and Bethune switching off on Etienne. Maybe even Akeem Dent on either of those two guys. Or as Thomas, A.Z. Thomas, I might put him back there too. Got a lot of options on defense for Florida State, but it all starts and works around DeLoach and Bethune and those two linebackers. And then Peyton and Verse on the outside. We got Malcolm Ray playing well. Fisk is always playing solid in there. But yeah, the secondary's playing well. I felt good for Jarrion to get that pick. You know, he's been there a long time. He's been through thick and thin. For him to beat Miami 3 years in a row now, and for him to seal it with that pick was rewarding as a Florida State fan. You know, I dogged him the last couple of years. He just wasn't playing that well. He was learning. He was catching up to the speed. He was getting toasted a lot. But this year he's really played well, and I've credit where credit's due. You know, I have nothing against him. I was just pointing out that he was getting beat. That's going to happen. But he learned and he stayed and he stuck with it, and he's having a fantastic year. I hope he goes on to play in the NFL because he deserves it. I mean, he plays with fundamentals. He's disciplined in the corner position. He's always playing hard. He's a player. He's a gamer. I'm glad he's on our side. Number 7, dogged him for a long time. Now we need him back there. He's our captain in that secondary, and he's really, really good. So yeah, hats off to Jarrion for getting that pick, man. You've been playing well this year, man. Keep it up. Fucking need it. I was thinking today they're 10-0, but if they get, they've got a game against like North Alabama, I think it is. I don't even know who it is. So 11-0. Then they got Florida. Then they got the conference championship game. It looks like it's going to be against Louisville, I'm pretty sure. That's 3 games. And then if they win all those, I'm not saying they are going to, but they've got a chance in all of them, right? But if they win all those and they go to the playoff, that's 4 games. Let's say they win that and they go to the national championship. That's 5 more games. So they're 10-0 right now. It's gone quick, but it's also been a long time. I mean, that's 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks with a bye in there. And we're talking about 5 more games. That's a lot. It's going to happen for somebody. It may not be Florida State, but it's going to happen for some teams, which is crazy. I love college football. That's why I'm doing this, to talk about it. But it's crazy to think they could have, 33% of their season still left out there. That's still a lot of football. But yeah, that's why you tune in as a fan every year. You get excited especially if your team has not lost. And they've had some tough games. They haven't played their best, whatever, it's just fun to be a fan and ride it out, because your team unless you're Alabama or Georgia, your team doesn't win all that often. Last time we won was 2013 season. I think it was in January of 2014 is when the actual game was. But with Jameis and James Wilder Jr., Freeman, Benjamin, all those guys, Telvin Smith, LaMarcus Joyner, Brooks, Rashad Green, all those guys. Kermit Whitfield, Carlos. Yeah, we won it in 13. Before that, it was 1999. And we won a couple in the early 90s. But, Iowa, they went 12-0 back in like 2016 or something. Maybe it was 15. And that was fun. They came within, a couple of yards playing Michigan State in the championship game from winning and possibly going to the playoffs. I mean, they would be an underdog, but it was, that's why you tune in to see your team make a run at it. And it may be the only time in your lifetime or your dad's lifetime or, your grandparents or your brothers or your, but that's why you tune in. That's why you're a fan, to see them one time and just see if they can pull it off. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But until they get beat, you've got that dream in your head, and that this could be the year. This could be the year. This feels like a special team. But I like what I'm seeing out there. Miami is always a tough game for them. Florida's going to be a really tough game for them on the road. Greedy almost had a pick. I thought he had it. Way too technical in the replay, but I thought that was a pick to me. Should have been Florida State's ball right there. If I'm not mistaken, Miami scored on that drive, right? That's why the only reason I wrote it down, because if they didn't score, it's not that big a deal. But to me, it looked like a pick. Even in the replays, arm was underneath it. Looked like a pick to me. But they looked at it, they reversed it, and then like 6 plays later, they ran it in for a touchdown, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I thought the officiating was pretty piss poor all the way around, both teams. That safety, it was clearly a safety, Jordan Travis. I don't know how they looked at that and came back and said, no, that's not a safety. It's like, what? We want to win this game, but we want to win it without any controversy or bullshit from the replay crew, like it's okay. Like it's 2 points. Like it sucks. It was a boneheaded play by Travis, but I mean, like, what are you looking at? Or what are we trying to do here? Is there an agenda to get Florida State to the playoff? Like, you want to win fair and square, I guess is what I'm saying. And that didn't feel very fair or square. Fair nor square, I think, is the correct grammar. But anyway, yeah, so at that point, I think it would have been 10-9. And then Miami scored a field goal. You never know, because that would have changed the whole sequence of events. Butterfly effect there. But yeah, they didn't call it. I don't know. That seemed very suspicious to me, even as a Florida State fan. Game of inches, right? Miami's first play in the second half. So they received the kick, right? Their first play that they ran was a run, and Fletcher, I'm pretty sure, he breaks away past the linebackers. He's getting into the secondary, and he puts a move on, but he jukes to the outside and comes back into the inside, where I think Shaheen comes around and tackles him, the other safety back there. If he would have cut to the left, there was nobody out there, I'm pretty sure, and he had the move on, but he went inside instead and got tackled. If he would have went left, I think he breaks it no problem. Miami breaks out in the second half, goes up 17-10, just like that. They've got all the momentum in the world. That's a totally different ball game. But game of inches, he decides to go inside and gets tackled. Yeah. There's another. I thought there was another really close play that could have. Oh, the safety. I mean, yeah, that was close, but I think it was clearly a safety. You got to call that, even after looking at it. Now Hawkeyes, so they both played at 2:30. I actually watched more of the Iowa game than I did Florida State. Florida State was making me nervous, and I knew that I could watch it later. It wasn't making me nervous. It just makes me mad because they play. Yeah. So I watched more of the Iowa game. It was 3-0 at halftime. Not much had happened. They were throwing the ball a little bit. Hill made a terrible pass on the interception right before halftime on like the 12-yard line. He threw it to the goal line, and it was a bad pass. It was from one sideline past the other, almost to the other sideline. And the guy just picked it off pretty easily. He had a couple open guys there. It looked like to me he's got to make a quicker decision, get that ball out, but he can't throw it 900 miles an hour. They're never going to. I mean, you got to give him a fair chance. That's not on the receiver when you're throwing the ball that hard, bro. Just get it in there efficiently, but not haphazardly. I mean, but anyway, 3-0 at halftime, and in the second half I thought they ran the ball all right, but the play selection, I thought Brian Ferentz called an excellent game yesterday. Credit where credit's due. If he used his players like he did yesterday and was that creative with the play calling, I think some of these games would have been decided much earlier. Things would be different, but I have mixed feelings about Brian. I've been a huge critic of him the last couple of years. I just wanted him to get moved to the offensive line where he was killing it. I mean, he was absolutely churning them out up there. Just move him down to offensive line and bring like LeVar or bring somebody in, There's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of Iowa fans would support that, but they didn't even entertain that. I mean, they just canned him. And I wasn't behind closed doors, none of us were, but it's a shame it didn't work out that way. Maybe something will happen there, but yeah, the second half, they looked pretty damn good against, it was Rutgers, but it was nice to see a change. They threw the ball down the field, and that kid ran for like 50 yards. Number 48, the new tight end. Next man in. Good to see Caleb Johnson get some carries. Yeah, it was just Caleb Brown. He looked good out there. Yeah. Number 6, he looked good out there. Anderson, I think is his name. Whatever his name is. They've got work to do, but the defense looked rock solid. I think they play Illinois at home on Senior Day Saturday. And then they go to Nebraska, I think is how the schedule remains. And then I think they go to the Big Ten championship game if they win one of those two games, which is crazy. It's crazy that they should be 9-1. Penn State whooped them. They played terrible. Penn State played pretty good. But Minnesota, we've already beat that one to death. They should be 9-1. That's wildness. Well, yeah. Trying to think. Castro played well. Higgins played well. Jackson played well. Joe Evans played well. Logan Lee played well. I mean, they all played well. Shudi or Shut or whatever his name is got that pick at the end. He played well. DeJean played well. Awamba or whatever played well. He knocked that guy on his ass, and the guy got hurt. Just a simple run play, and he came up and crushed him. The guy was trying to block him, and yeah, he just thumped him. The guy got like knocked out. He was sitting there on the field, and the trainers had to come out. It's quite a hit. On offense, Deacon Hill played all right. That interception was boneheaded, but played much better in the second half. I've already talked about Caleb Brown. Caleb Johnson had an okay day. LaShawn Williams had a decent day. Patterson runs hard. I like him. Regini played all right. The tight ends played pretty well. Who else we got? Anderson, I talked about him. I mean, yeah, they did all right. Wheatgen got in there, and he didn't do anything. He tripped over his own feet on end around. All right, next week I think is Cupcake Week, but let's check out what's going on in Week 12. All right, Tuesday, Akron goes to Eastern Michigan. Toledo goes to Bowling Green, and Western Michigan goes to Northern Illinois. Wednesday, Buffalo goes to Miami of Ohio. Central Michigan goes to Ohio. Thursday, Boston College goes to Pitt. Friday, South Florida goes to Texas San Antonio. They play at the Alamo Dome. And also Friday at 9:30 p.m., Colorado goes to Washington State. Over-under is 63.5 points. Over-under of the South Florida, Texas San Antonio is 67.5 points. Jesus Christ. Excuse me. Saturday at 11 a.m., Abilene Christian goes to Texas A&M. Whew. Coastal Carolina goes to Army. East Carolina goes to Navy. Louisiana Monroe goes to Ole Miss. Michigan goes to Maryland. It's at 11 on Saturday. Michigan State goes to Indiana. Oklahoma goes to BYU. Purdue goes to Northwestern. Rutgers goes to Penn State. Sacred Heart goes to UConn. We're still in the 11 o'clock hour. SMU goes to Memphis. That's a good game. Over-under in that one is 67.5. Chattanooga goes to Alabama. Tulane goes to Florida Atlantic. Southern Miss goes to Mississippi State. At noon, UMass goes to Liberty. At 1, App State goes to James Madison. At 1, Hawaii goes to Wyoming. Kent State goes to Ball State. Louisiana Tech goes to Jacksonville State. Rice goes to Charlotte. UTEP goes to Middle Tennessee. Cincinnati goes to West Virginia. 1:30, Utah goes to Arizona. That's an interesting game. 2 o'clock, Duke goes to Virginia. Nevada goes to Colorado State. North Texas goes to Tulsa. Temple goes to UAB. Texas State goes to Arkansas State. At 2:30, Baylor goes to TCU. Illinois goes to Iowa. Iowa is a 4-point favorite. Over-under is 30 points. Wow. NC State goes to Virginia Tech. That's an interesting game. Sam Houston goes to Western Kentucky. UCLA goes to USC. Georgia goes to Tennessee. Louisiana goes to Troy. North Carolina goes to Clemson. UNLV goes to Air Force. Wake Forest goes to Notre Dame. Minnesota goes to Ohio State. New Mexico State goes to Auburn. Oklahoma State goes to Houston. Oregon goes to Arizona State. Marshall goes to South Alabama. UCF goes to Texas Tech. Old Dominion goes to Georgia Southern. Cal goes to Stanford. The band is on the field. The band is on the field. North Alabama goes to Florida State. That's at 5:30. Boise State goes to Utah State at 6. K-State goes to Kansas. Florida International goes to Arkansas. Florida goes to Missouri. Ouch. Nebraska goes to Wisconsin. Wow. Florida goes to Missouri. Missouri's 10.5-point favorites. Nebraska goes to Wisconsin. Kentucky goes to South Carolina. Washington State goes to Oregon State. That's interesting. Syracuse goes to Georgia Tech. Georgia State goes to LSU. Texas goes to Iowa State. That's at 7 p.m. New Mexico goes to Fresno State. And San Diego State goes to San Jose State. To be announced, Louisville at Miami. All right. Well, getting down to it at this point. Let's look at the standings. Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State, Indiana. Iowa, Nebraska, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Purdue. All right. Well, been going for 43 minutes. I'm done. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next time.